Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. No Name Cinema Society, our second episode of the evening. It's time for our Indie Spotlight. And tonight's film is a film from early last year, an indie called Enemy from director Denis Villeneuve. Those of you who have been paying attention to the trivia on the clues on our Facebook page might have noticed that the trivia had to do with my favorite film of 2013, which was a film called Prisoners. Also directed by Denis Villeneuve and starring Jake Gyllenhaal. And the trivia was that our indie this week was a director-actor combo reuniting, and that's those two, Jake Gyllenhaal and Denis Villeneuve. And that's this week's film, Enemy. Before I get started, I want to introduce my cohorts. First, let's go with Dave Joseph over there. Hey, how you doing, Dave?
Doing all right. Doing all right.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You seem not so sure about that.
I'm positive.
J Money, ready for the indie spotlight?
Yeah. Are you broing him? Don't bro him.
Not this time. That was the last episode. And also, no dancing in this particular episode. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you'll have to watch episode 16.1 on We Are Your Friends. Someone who is not my friend is Jake Gyllenhaal. And in this film, Enemy, he plays a depressive college English professor who one night discovers a man who looks and sounds exactly like him when he's watching a movie. And this picture is a scene of him watching the movie. He then becomes obsessed with hunting down this actor in this movie and throwing his own life as well as this actor's into disarray, his apparent doppelganger. This movie was recommended to us by Dave Joseph. So Dave, why don't you start us off? Why this movie?
I like this movie because it's a good conversation piece. I mean, if you're gonna do a show like this, I can't think of a better movie for it because, you know, this is something that just needs to be discussed. It really is.
But that's not about the movie itself. Did you like the movie?
Oh yeah, I did because it's interesting and it's a movie that you need to see. I think you need to really study, and I enjoyed that.
Okay, how many times did you watch it?
3.
3 times.
Wow.
In a row or like over a period of time?
No. I saw it twice a while back, and then I just watched it again yesterday.
J Money, what did you think?
Wow, I'm impressed that I saw it 3 times. I enjoyed the movie as well. I don't know if I enjoyed it as much as he did. I probably enjoyed it more than you did. So I'm probably in the middle again. That's my theory.
Interesting. Why are you making like a guess on what I... Vanessa, you can come in. Don't be shy. We have a new guest, everybody. It's Vanessa.
Hey, Vanessa.
Hey.
I know you guys.
Well, at least you know J Money.
I know J Money.
Yeah.
Hi, J Money.
This is Davie Joe, also known as Drunk Davie. You don't know him. He's in... Where are you right now, Charlotte?
Detroit.
He's in Detroit.
Oh, wow.
Detroit.
Yeah, we're all over the place. So anyway, why would you assume I wouldn't like it?
Well, so far I've been in the middle for you guys for the last couple of rounds, I think, which, you know, so I've been following that way. I would say that you might not like it because you might say it was too stylistically driven. That's my guess.
I would say that it's a moody mindbender, very consistent. I like most of the stylistic elements of it. It used the mise-en-scène a lot. It was very consistent in terms of its tone and in other things of that nature. Everything matched the tone, whether it's the performances or the shots or the lighting. Everything matched, which is a sign of good direction. It is a mindbender that needs to be discussed and is not necessarily meant to be understood, but I would have liked. Ultimately, I didn't enjoy it. Like, I didn't enjoy watching it, and I think that's the deal breaker for me. I don't care to think about it. I mean, it's not to say that. It's a tricky balance what they're trying to accomplish, and I have a lot of respect for Denis Villeneuve. And as I mentioned about 10 minutes ago in our last broadcast, we're going to be talking about his next feature on September 22nd. But yeah, I don't. There was a lot of clues and a lot of stuff that they wanted you to follow, but not enough. Like it's a tricky balance, like how much information to give and how much. Normally, I'm criticizing films for hitting us over the head with information, giving us too much. In this particular case, I could have used a little bit more. And I know they didn't want to give away too much, and they had some allegories going on, but it for me to be engaged, I'm a smart guy, and if I'm not getting enough, and I'm dissatisfied in that regard, then I'm disengaging.
That's fair. I mean, do you feel like they were leaving questions unanswered because they didn't necessarily have the answers themselves? Or do you feel like they were just doing that because they wanted to tempt and tease you as much as possible without giving their hand?
I think they wanted it. They wanted the sort of response that Davie gave. I think they want people to watch it over and over again and figure it out. I think they want the Mindbender thing. But even
beyond that, do you think that they actually?
It was a frustrating experience, and I don't want to watch it again. I have no interest in ever seeing it again.
But JB, even beyond the fact that they're trying to tempt people to watch it over and over, do you think that they did have the answers?
Yes, I presume that they do.
Do they? Okay, interesting. Because I left it not really being completely convinced that they might. For me, it's like I really appreciated the atmospheric quality of it. It's the kind of movie that honestly I could live in. I could probably watch it again a couple times, just because I find myself loving that quality of film, that sort of slow, dark, brooding sort of sense of it. It's something that just in general really pulls me into any kind of film situation. But I also think that maybe there were some decisions made that were, I don't want to say whimsical or on the whim. I think that perhaps the director wanted to put in some elements to keep people on their toes without necessarily thinking through what he was doing as much as he could have. I don't know. It's up for grabs. It's up for interpretation. That's what's so great with this movie. Obviously, Davie Joe has some ideas about that since he's seen it so many times. He probably has a conclusion that he's come to. I'd be curious.
Well, I think there's clues throughout the mise-en-scène. Like, for example, look at this chalkboard. And if you sat and really paused it and analyzed this chalkboard, I think you'd see some clues. Like, for example, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. I mean, I think that suggests, one of these guys is a thesis, the other is the antithesis, and, together they make some sort of synthesis. And also, the duality of man has been explored by filmmakers in all different ways. The most fun filmmaker exploring the duality of man is John Woo in films like The Killer and Face Off. But this was a more moody look at it. Davie, do you, having watched it several times, as J Money suggests, do you have more to offer in terms of figuring it out?
I don't know how much you want me to say, but I definitely have a theory as to what's going on.
You can say, I suppose it. What I don't want is for you to have done, here I found this online when I was looking for photos, and somebody Denis Villeneuve came out and he explained it at one point. I did not look up this explanation, but I think that's wrong. I don't want them to tell me. I think that ruins everything.
Sure.
I want the film to do a better job of making it clear. So, Davie, if you have a theory that you came up with on your own, that's great. If not, if you looked it up afterwards, then I think let's leave it.
Well, no. I basically what I got from it the first time, and that's what I'll talk about. I'll talk about basically. Here's what I'll do. I'll set it up the way people should analyze it. You watch this movie, and the question is, there's two people, or the question is, are there two people, or is there one person?
Right.
And I'm not gonna tell people what to come up with on their own, but I do think everything is in the movie, and if you really study it, if you care enough to really study it, you can figure it out. There are enough clues.
But for me, that's not good enough. Again, I will always say this film is successful because it's exactly what the director intended. That's what I think. So it's successful in that regard. The director set out to do something and he achieved it.
I don't know if you saw the same thing when you looked this up that I saw at the end of the thing that I rented. I rented this through Vudu, and there actually was a sort of a 5-minute featurette at the very end of it, where it was Jake Gyllenhaal and the director sitting next to each other talking about what they thought the movie was about, and they actually came to two different conclusions. So it's interesting that the director had one thing in mind that he was directing, and Jake Gyllenhaal had the opposite thing in his mind when he was coming up with this character.
Well, I mean, again, I mean that's the kind of thing that I don't want or you know, I mean, like this sort of like having to like look something up and figure out outside of the scope of the movie. I mean, I think that's irrelevant to this discussion.
Yeah, sure, but my point is simply that to me that means this movie really is up for discussion. It really is up for interpretation. If both the people that are really heavily involved in this movie have their own interpretation about this, what they were doing, and their different interpretations, that's actually very promising to me. That makes it better to me, because then it means you really can come to your conclusions on your own time about this movie.
Sure, but I mean, like that doesn't. I mean, like I still don't think there's enough evidence there in either way. You know what I mean? Like the evidence is not cohesive enough in any one particular direction.
But I think that's the point. You're not necessarily supposed to come to a conclusion, at least in terms of, to me, at least in terms of, you know, whether or not the characters are a representation of one person versus, you know, two different people. I don't really think you're supposed to. Yeah, I mean, I don't see how that is even possible. Which way?
But I mean, like, I don't know. That is something I never thought was even a possibility.
Which didn't you think was a possibility?
That they were that they were one person. That I think I disregard as an option.
Really? You don't think it was possibly one person that was split into different parts?
No.
That's interesting. I mean, it's funny because I know we're not supposed to talk about this, but the thing I texted Davie Joe as soon as I was done watching this was whether or not I thought that this was like basically a mashup of Fight Club and The Parent Trap, because I felt like there were a lot of similar kind of qualities.
Well, I mean, I felt like Fight Club, I mean, like would make this like itself like. I feel like you're not going to try and remake Fight Club or use those similar themes. You know what I mean?
No, I'm just talking about the way that the whole thing played out. I mean, to me, it was like there were some themes from both of those different things I just said that were kind of put together in here. Even, you know, it wasn't.
And I mean, like, and I think the existence of Fight Club that's one of the main things that made me disregard that theory. Is like I didn't feel like it would if that is the case, then it feels like a carbon copy almost.
Well, that's interesting, because I think for me in the end, I actually do think it was one person, but I also don't necessarily think that I'm right. I just think that that's the interpretation I went with.
I agree. I think it's one person.
I disagree. I think
but
I don't. You know, either way, I wouldn't be unhappy with either solution. That's just where I went with it by the end of it.
There's also the other question that this movie, and it's what the hell is going on with that spider?
Right.
Well, and that was another issue I have. Is it was a heavy-handed metaphor, and like it was so omnipresent.
Was it? I mean,
I think so. Because I mean, everything you see, like even that. I'll go back to that chalkboard. That chalkboard is a web. The trolley lines of what was that Toronto?
Yeah.
The trolley lines are a web. I mean, like it's constantly. You know, reminding us of the spider metaphor.
Well, so what do you think he was trying to say then?
Oh, I have no idea. And the problem with the movie and the way it's constructed is I don't care. Like I genuinely don't care.
You know, it's funny. It's funny because you're saying all the same stuff that I said about Boyhood. I mean, he did exactly what he wanted to do. He nailed it. He did exactly what he wanted to do.
And I don't hate the film as much as you hate Boyhood. I mean,
that's fair, and that's fair.
I think I've said a lot of positive things about it. I mean, I continue to be impressed by Denis Villeneuve, and I'm very excited about the film we're going to review on September 22nd, Sicario. But at this time, I mean, this almost felt like, you know, an ambitious experiment, and I mean, I know exactly where their mind was in terms of like playing with audience involvement, and you know the information that you give an audience is always a battle. Like how much is too much, how much is not enough, and that's a constant battle. And this one they wanted to make us work a little harder, which I always, you know, I like being challenged, but I also I don't like. You know, being given a puzzle I can't solve. Yeah, but on purpose.
Regardless of whether or not you solve it, you have to draw conclusions. And whether or not you want to actually address the spider, you didn't notice.
You know, I didn't because I stopped caring. Like, because it did not draw me enough. So I mean, like I remember that very specifically. I got to a point where like it doesn't matter to me. Like, you know, normally my mind's trying to figure it out, and like looking at all these clues, and I stopped. I genuinely was like, it doesn't matter to me. And then, so the famous ending shot, I was like, I don't even fucking care anymore.
Well, see,
I don't even want to tax my brain another second about this.
The ending shot is the only thing that, to me, threw me off. And it's, I guess, again, I would say it was maybe a questionable decision on the director's part, just because I also thought that it was a little silly, perhaps. But that's why I'm really curious to hear, Davie Joe, did you reach a conclusion about what the spiders represented, what the spider in general was for this guy?
A conclusion? No. I mean, do you have a theory, or?
Well, I mean, up and through the entire movie, it definitely was very deeply tied to sexuality and women in general. There was a sense of somebody being drawn deeper into it of something. There was a sense of him sort of being cast about and ready to be sacrificed for a kill. I mean, there's a lot of things that were about this movie that were dark and brooding, and it suggested that he was kind of going further and further into a trap of some sort. So I was kind of clear in terms of maybe, you know, the spider as a metaphor for some of his relationships in the film, and for maybe his own sense of dealing with his own sexuality, which was a really large part of the what was driving the plot in this movie. And then I got thrown for a loop at the end, because I'm not really sure if that fits into the whole thing the way I'm talking about it, or if it's just something that was kind of thrown in for shock, or all these different things. I mean, you know, I think for me it was a very left field decision to throw that scene in at the very end like it was, even though it fit with everything else that he was talking about. It fit with the aesthetic that he had already established. It fit with some of the themes we'd already kind of seen. It just seemed like it was very almost like, you know, hitting you over the head with some idea, and I thought that was kind of odd. It felt that it juxtaposition to everything else that had already happened at that point. So I don't know.
I mean, the other thing is, if you really think about it, there's no possible. I mean, like in Fight Club, no one interacted with both of them separately, and here they did. Like the actor's wife interacted with both of them separately.
It depends. It depends on
me that I mean, like they can't be one person in some place in time without being like parallel universe or something like that.
Well, no, but in any situation like this, you can always have one character construct an entirely different reality. What we're watching is a construction of his reality as opposed to an actual reality, right? I mean, that's kind of up for grabs one way or the other.
Also, you never see the two of them with someone else together.
Yeah, I thought there was a really telling scene when Jake Gyllenhaal's teacher character meets Jake Gyllenhaal's actor character's wife the first time.
Right. I mean, that's the scene I was referring to.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think this suggests that it's impossible that they're two different people, that they're one person, rather.
But as soon as he's leaving the scene, she tries calling her husband, and as soon as Gyllenhaal steps out of frame, that's when her husband picks up. To me, that's a kind of a trick that sort of suggests perhaps they are the same character, because there was no proof one way or the other that they were not in that situation. Like,
I don't know. Like,
as a director playing with the perception of whether or not it was somebody picking up the phone.
Yeah, I mean, it more reads like a red herring to me, because it otherwise doesn't make sense. But then again, neither is the ending shot.
The sense is not really part of the issue here. It's about whether or not you want to buy the idea that one character constructed an alternate reality, or whether or not you want to believe that there is this idea that, you know, this possibility of this almost miracle kind of thing happening. I can go either way on that. I really can. I'm just saying by the end of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I feel I don't know what else to make of it, but I feel confident that they're two different people. But regardless, let's talk about performances real quick. We talked about it during Southpaw. I think Jake Gyllenhaal's come a long way as an actor. You know, like, I actually didn't like him in Brokeback Mountain, his one Oscar nomination. But ever since then, between Prisoners and Southpaw and this film, I mean, I think he, you know, creates two different distinct, you know, people, an ego and an id type, you know, with these characters that is really good. I think that female characters are very two-dimensional, but they fit the tone of the film. They're sort of moody representation, and, you know, sort of monotone in most scenes, except when things get sexual or violent.
Yeah, they were kind of prop dressing in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I mean,
and pretty women, but I mean, like, they weren't given much to do but I mean, like, it fit the tone of the film. Davie Joe?
Yeah, and the performances were good, good to great. Gyllenhaal, I thought, was great, but I mean, he was the only one given really an opportunity to show much. I agree with everything you said about him. I think he's as good as anyone in the game right now. I didn't see Prisoners. I need to see that. But
Jim, have you seen Prisoners?
No, I haven't seen Prisoners. But I did also enjoy the feature he was in last year as well.
Nightcrawler.
I'm trying to remember the name of it right now.
You did also enjoy what?
The feature that he was in last year that we talked about during the Oscar show.
Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler.
Oh, and sorry, and right, that was the other performance where he's really
Excellent.
I actually think Nightcrawler is, although good, is the least of his performances, and that says a lot about Southpaw. Yeah. I mean, at least his recent performances. That says a lot about Southpaw, Enemy, and Prisoners, because he's good in Nightcrawler, but slightly affected sometimes. Like sometimes he puts it on just a little too much, the sleaze factor.
I totally agree with you about that, but I think that if you look at the entire spectrum from this year, amazing. Like
for sure. I'm very excited for his future. He's got a lot of exciting stuff coming up, and again, he didn't need to take this small movie in Quebec, and like Zac Efron, challenging himself. So it's kind of exciting for him. He's not in Sicario though, the film we're going to talk about on September 22nd. It would be interesting though, since we talk about this film and we're talking about Sicario on September 22nd. It would be interesting if you guys decide to watch Prisoners between now and then. I think that there's a lot of what Villeneuve does in this movie in terms of mise en scène, in terms of moody lighting and such. It's all there. But with a significantly stronger script. It is very dense and complicated, like this film, but just enough to figure it out. And the way that he reveals character information is very challenging, and yet just enough. It's exactly the example of what I wanted Enemy to be. Just a little bit more to give me so that I can be along for the ride. And also all the moral dilemmas in the movie, I think, ratchet up the tension. So that's our alarm.
One more thing.
Closing thoughts, guys?
One more thing I want to ask you guys about.
Very quickly.
Make mention of the soundtrack, which I thought was amazing.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Agreed.
JB?
I actually didn't make a note of it, and I just watched it within the week, and I don't remember it. I feel like everything added to the mood. So in that sense, I don't remember feeling like musically it was particularly special, but I remember feeling like everything was fitting this very moody concept. Well,
there were some very serious hard cuts that were timed to certain beats in the music that I thought worked out really well, just in some ways. But also I didn't notice that. The music itself definitely added to the atmospheric quality of it, so it just felt very, very complete from that point of view.
Davey, Joe, any closing thoughts?
No, I think we covered it, man.
All right, cool. Well, that is our discussion on Enemy. All right, so our night continues in about 5 minutes. We're doing our classic movie of the week, and we are doing film right behind me, if you can see that. Oh my gosh! We're back to 1940. We talked about The Great Dictator from 1940, and we talked about Pinocchio at one point, in compare and contrast the Great Dictator and Pinocchio. So we're back to 1940 with The Philadelphia Story. We're starring Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn, and Jimmy Stewart, and directed by George Cukor. That's coming up in 5 minutes, our classic movie of the week. We will see you then.